This episode is brought to you by VPP Simplified. Now you can get element by element tracking and guidance for your VPP journey. Every aspect of the VPP requirements in one easy-to-use interactive spreadsheet. It explains every sub-element in detail, contains an easy-to-read stoplight so you can track current status for each sub-element. It provides you with a 3-step verification for completion of each sub-element. There's even a notes section for you to compile language that will eventually be used for your VPP application. It even comes complete with graphs to show current state and track your progress moving forward. Look, achieving VPP star status can be tough, but understanding what it takes to get there can be simplified. This VPP Gap tool will help you do that. Go to vppsimplified.com for more information.
Welcome to the Safety Pro Podcast, where we help you manage workplace safety one episode at a time. And now, your very own Safety Pro, Blaine J. Hoffman.
All right, back at it with another episode of the Safety Pro Podcast. Hey, I'm going to talk about a topic that, we're not going to be able to cover in its entirety in one podcast episode. So I will probably, always be touching on the topic of culture in the workplace, especially as it's related to workplace safety, just going into the future. It's a topic that always comes up and a lot of folks struggle with it. I don't know why, but I think it stems from the lack of understanding of what culture actually is. Folks believe that, culture or lack of a culture that they want is a direct result of maybe a program that's not working, something that, somebody hasn't told the workforce, hey, this is the way you have to act, or this is the way we are. I think it's much deeper than that. I think what I want to talk about today is how you can tell or how you can determine whether or not you have the right culture. Because you have a culture. You have a culture regardless. Every workplace has a culture. Sometimes, depending upon the workplace, you have several cultures going on. You have a large manufacturing environment with 4 or 5 different unions and 3 shifts and 2 weekend shifts. You're going to have subcultures within those groups. And, it could be pretty complicated. So I've got a couple of things I want to share with you on a high level, and then I want to kind of hopefully be able to point you in the right direction, with some tools that you can use to try to gauge where your current culture is. And we're talking about safety and health, how you can tie some things in with HR, how leadership drives all of this. As a matter of fact, we'll get into that. But, I've always heard clients tell me that, it's a myth that is promoted mostly by attorneys and, even consultants, that supervisors or even business owners could actually get into legal trouble for safety violations, stuff like that. And of course, I can always cite examples to the contrary, not to try to scare anyone, but just to illustrate the incredible duty and responsibility that we have as managers, supervisors, and business owners to protect the safety and health of those that we employ. Just a couple of examples, and then I'll kind of explain why I'm bringing this up. Back in 2015, December of 2015, a jury found a former coal mine CEO guilty of conspiring to willfully violate mine safety standards. The penalty was a sentence of 1 year in prison and $250,000 fine. So that was the maximum allowed by the law for that offense. Going back to 2010, an explosion when methane gas ignited and was further fueled by coal dust tore through a mine near Montcole, West Virginia. It killed 29 miners and injured 2. These are both mine MSHA related, but what they did is after a 2-year investigation, they concluded the owner of the mine violated widely recognized safety standards and even failed to prevent or correct numerous hazards that ultimately caused the catastrophic explosion, by using advance notice of inspections and intimidation of miners to hide violations from federal inspectors. The report concluded that the corporate culture was the root cause or a root cause of the tragedy. Since that incident, a former mine security director was convicted of lying to federal investigators and ordering the destruction of evidence. Another former employee was sentenced to jail time after he was convicted of faking a mine foreman's license and lying to federal investigators. And a mine superintendent was charged with conspiracy to defraud the U.S. by engaging in a conspiracy to give advance notification of mine inspections, kind of tipping off mine operators when inspections were going to occur, and falsifying examination record books as well, and altering the mine's ventilation system before the inspectors were able to inspect underground. So the U.S. Secretary of Labor at the time, Thomas Perez, said in a statement about that former CEO's sentence, "This sentence proves that no mine operator is above the law and should send a strong signal to unscrupulous miners that skirt safety rules. No prison sentence and no amount of money can bring back the 29 men who lost their lives." That said, this is a clear case of punishment not fitting the crime. The sentence is the maximum allowed under the law, but regrettably, the criminal provisions of the Mine Act are far too weak to truly hold accountable those who put miners' lives at risk. This administration continues to support efforts in Congress to strengthen those penalties, and we stand ready to work with members who believe that no worker should lose their life for a paycheck. We all know the PR nightmare that comes from a catastrophe in any organization. No, it's not about saving face, but what I'm trying to illustrate is time and time again, we find that root causes often point back to a fundamental lack of leadership, and the culture that is in place contributes to these catastrophic events. For anyone who thinks that they're immune to actions like these, think again. I've often had people call me as a consultant and say, hey, how can we better manage OSHA inspectors or MSHA inspectors when they show up? We want to do a course teaching our supervisors what to do and how to act and behave when they knock on the door and all that good stuff. And I said, hey, I'll give you 3 words of advice and I won't even charge you for it. Be in compliance. It's that simple. Now, if you need help assessing your work areas and determining whether your written programs are robust enough, have you done adequate training? Do you have adequate oversight? I want to zero in on middle management. Do you have the right people in the right positions to drive the right behaviors that we should see in an environment like yours? We can talk. But if you're looking for a quick and dirty, hey, I just want to know what to tell my folks, how to handle an OSHA inspector, an actual OSHA compliance officer when they show up, that's it. Be in compliance. Every day they should be able to knock on the door at any day. Now, that's a perfect world. I understand that at any given point in time, one snapshot in time, anybody could find something out of compliance. But I'm talking about this wholesale cultural dysfunction. You can't hide years and years and years of cultural abuse and dysfunction in an entire work site that's been left go for 15, 20, 25 years. You're not going to dust all that off and spruce it up in 20 minutes that you ask this compliance officer to wait in the lobby. It's not going to work. So that isn't the answer. The answer is you need to take a long, hard look at the culture that you have inside your workplace. Now, there are tools available to help you sort of assess your entire safety and health management system, including its culture, okay? And there's just one tool that I know of that's available is the Total Worker Health. It's the TWH. NIOSH actually came up with this one. And basically, it means the policies, programs, and practices that integrate protections from work-related safety and health hazards with promotion of injury illness prevention efforts to advance worker well-being. Good Lord, that's a mouthful. Basically to assist employers, workers, other professionals in applying workplace safety and health programs, NIOSH, with their program, is offering a workbook, The Fundamentals of Total Work Health Approaches, and it can help employers identify and address job-related factors that could contribute to job problems or health problems, such as hours of work, workload, stress levels, interactions with coworkers, and unhealthful work environments. Those things right there, if you think about them, hours of work, their workload, stress levels, their interactions with coworkers, those are all, we're talking about culture. We're not talking about, do we have we assessed our area for fall protection, gave everybody a harness and showed them how to inspect it and wear it, and we yell at them when they're not wearing it right. We're talking about, at a cultural level, the interactions with each other that they have. What kind of, do we have adequate oversight on the shop floor or on our project sites? That kind of stuff. You really need to take a long, hard look at leadership, and not so much whether or not we have a 3-ring binder with rules and we can check that box and say we have a written safety program. Okay. You've probably heard this before, and I'll say it to you just in case you haven't. Culture eats process for lunch. Doesn't matter if you have a well-written, you paid $5,000 for some guru to write, in this 3-ring binder, your safety book, your safety manual. Doesn't matter. If your culture does not take those written programs out into the work environment and educate the workforce and actually set the expectation that this is how we are going to behave, this is the way in which we are going to do our work, and we will watch for this, we will check for this, audit for this, we will expect this, and we will lead by example, and we will continuously set that example for you. But if you don't have any of that, it doesn't matter what 3-ring binder you have sitting on a shelf. According to NIOSH, this workbook they have, it prioritizes a hazard-free work environment for workers, and it applies a modern prevention approach consistent with traditional occupational safety and health principles that recognize that job-related factors can have an important impact on well-being of workers, their families, and communities. So it's trying to take this holistic approach to not just looking at, do you have the right safety rules written down, the 3 E. We used to call it the 3 E's of safety: engineer, educate, and enforce. We're way past that. That's old school stuff, right? So they broke it down into 5 defining elements. 1 is demonstrate leadership commitment to worker safety and health at all levels of the organization. It doesn't matter what you do after this. If you're missing this one, you're done. This is what I was telling you about in those criminal cases just a few minutes ago, that you lack this one, everything else is downhill. It doesn't matter. It's often joked in law enforcement. I've got family in law enforcement friends, and even compliance officers. I've heard similar phrases. A law is not a law until it's enforced. A policy or rule isn't a rule until it's enforced. It doesn't matter if you have all this stuff written down and you have, a shiny written safety program. It's what matters is, are people aware of it, and are they following it every day? Do we see the evidence of it? And I'll get to how we can check that off here in a moment. But this first element in this NIOSH workbook, demonstrate leadership commitment to worker safety and health at all levels of the organization. The second element, design work to eliminate or reduce safety and health hazards and promote worker well-being. The third element, promote and support worker engagement throughout program design and implementation. So they want you to pull in shop floor workers, site workers during the design and implementation of this program. Fourth element, ensure confidentiality and privacy of workers. We're talking about injury, illness cases, things like that. Reporting, whistleblower protection stuff probably comes into play here. The fifth element, integrate relevant systems to advance worker well-being. And that's pretty broad. The workbook, it's a free workbook. I'll put a link to this workbook in the show notes, and you can go through that. But in addition to providing examples of total worker health approaches, it also features a conceptual model, the hierarchy of controls applied to NIOSH, total worker health. They state that the expanded model serves to illustrate approaches emphasize organizational level interventions to protect workers' safety, health, and well-being. What they're doing is they're trying to take this old hierarchy of controls and putting a new twist on it, adding some cultural elements, right? And this is what I'm getting at, is you've got to tie all these things together with that first element, leadership commitment, to be specific. Something else this sounds like to many of you would be if you're familiar with the Voluntary Protection Program, or VPP, the first of the 4 elements, management commitment and employee involvement. Everything else after that are those 3 E's, right? Worksite analysis, hazard prevention and controls, and safety and health training. Those things are easy. It's that first one most folks struggle with. I want to go back to something I mentioned earlier. How can you tell? You probably heard at the beginning of this podcast, the VPP Simplified Gap tool. I've used that tool for years, okay? And it works. I've used it for non-VPP clients. This is where it benefited me. It's not that I'm pushing this gap tool. You can go back to the 4 elements of VPP, the podcasts, the 4 episodes I did on this, and I'll go line by line through this gap tool. So, go back, listen to that, and just take good notes, and you'll have a really good start, okay? So I'm not pushing a product here. I'm saying this is another tool that I've used to check off how we've gotten from a paper program to an effective safety health management system that actually is living and breathing out in the workplace. And I talk about the 3 Ps, paper, people, places. And you can run this backwards too. I'm going to start by going forwards. Paper, you start with a policy, procedure, a rule, something like that. Something that's required to be present in place, or a certain behavior that is expected in the workplace when performing certain jobs. It has to be written, either a JSA, a work instruction, or again, a rule or a policy or procedure. It has to be documented. Then you have to educate. So we're going to go with, engineer, educate, and enforce. But we're going to build on this and how I'm going to tie culture into this here in a minute. But then you have to train workers or make workers aware of its presence. You use that as the basis for training, orientation, retraining, refresher training, stuff like that. But you have to make sure that they're aware of its presence and the standards that have to be met. Okay, that's important. You have to set that example. It's that basic worker expectation that we all have. Do I know what's expected of me every day when I go to work? That's it. This is another way you can get an affirmative answer to that question. This is our opportunity to set an expectation of the work we want to see, the how we do our job. And that's what safety is. To non-safety professionals, to managers, supervisors, safety is the how we get our work done. Just like quality, it's the how we get our work done. So it sets this expectation. Then we need to go out into the workplace, follow up after we've got the policy, procedure, work instruction, JSA, we've communicated it, we've gone over it with workers, they've actually given us feedback and participated in the creation of these things. Then we want to make sure we go out into the workplace and follow up with, are they actually doing it? Are they following it? And it's not micromanaging, it isn't a game of gotcha, but it's just, that's what we have to do. We have to go out and make sure that we're following, because here's what they're going to see. They're going to hear you say one thing, they're going to see you doing it yourself, and they're going to see you call it out when it's falling a bit short or just non-existent altogether with other coworkers. They're going to see that consistent message from management leadership. That's commitment. They're going to see it. They're going to get the idea real quick that, hey, this is how we work around here. It isn't say one thing and do another, right? Top leadership needs to do this, but you know who's more important in this equation there? Middle management. We just call it the middle squeeze, right? Probably still called the middle squeeze. Frontline supervisors are the ones that, this is where it all falls apart. You got upper management. Of course, we all want everyone to go home safely. That's never been an issue. Rarely been an issue that in my experience, 25 plus years of doing this, right? Here's the issue. We've got middle managers feeling it from upper management on production numbers, getting stuff out on time, keeping costs down, all that good stuff. All important. Very, very critical to business that we all support. You also hear they hear the gripes from the floor. We don't have enough time to clean up. These machines aren't working right. We can't stop production long enough to get that fixed or this fixed. Middle management gets squeezed from both sides. And it happens, over time. And like I said, it's rarely ever this obvious where upper management says, screw those workers, we're going to get these parts out. That never happens. I have never seen that happen. It's very, very, very rare. What happens is you get this drift. We have the best intentions. We have the best policies and procedures established. We've invested time and money and resources into setting these things up. And over time, we sort of get this drift away from those core principles. And it happens naturally. It happens to, a lot of workplaces. The way you prevent that is you focus on those 3 Ps. Are we continuously talking to our employees, asking, do you understand these? Has anything changed in the workplace that requires us to address these policies and procedures? Have we introduced something new into the workplace since we created these policies and procedures that would require us to change or modify something? And then ask the question, hey, why aren't you following this? Hey, where is this toolbox talk? Where is that weekly safety inspection that you were supposed to do? Tying it to recognition programs, benefits, tying it to, bonuses, stuff like that if you're able to, but, kind of reinforcing that this is something we're committed to. We expect this to be done. That right there is the missing piece. It isn't enough to say we have these things in place and then never follow up with them. And then as you have turnover, 4, 5, 6, 10 years go by, you get all new people. You have to constantly be on top of this. And as you get new middle managers and new supervisors, are you interviewing for these qualities? Are you asking the questions of, what is your opinion of safety and health? How much time do you think a frontline supervisor should spend on the floor where the work happens? We've got to take a total approach to how we address workplace culture. If we want to address safety culture, we have to address total workplace culture. And it's important. You're not going to be able to avoid it. It doesn't exist in a vacuum or a bubble. We don't have one culture over here in the workplace and then a safety culture that's different. They're related. And I'll give you an example. I've gone into manufacturing facilities where they'll scream quality is what we are known for. Quality is our culture. We have a culture of quality. And I've engaged with them because they're looking to improve their actual safety performance. And I asked them, I said, hey, you've got such great quality and you're known for this with your customers and you pride yourself in it. How did you get there? What did you do? That's who we are. It's just in our culture that we are known for this and we are dogged about pursuing this as well. We let nothing slip by when it comes to quality. And I said, good, do that with safety. I'm not oversimplifying it. It is that easy. I'm not saying it's not going to be a long haul or a long journey, but if you were successfully able to instill quality as a core value and principle, operating principle, you can do the same thing with safety. They're no different. They're the same people. Quality is addressing the how you do what you do, right? If you say I need 5,000 of these parts, and I really don't give a rip what they look like or how they end up coming out at the back end, we're just going to ship them. You're going to get exactly what you asked for. But if you were successful in saying we need 5,000 parts, but it better look like this, it better be within these tolerances, these are the tools that we have to use to do it, and we're going to show you how to do it, and you invest that kind of time and energy and tooling and machine work and preventative maintenance and calibration, and you've got that kind of a focus. They feel it. These workers feel it, the omnipresence of that. That is always there. It's almost palpable. They can feel it. You can do that with safety. It's no different. I would even argue that you can't be that successful at quality and not be successful at safety. I bet you have all the components there. You're just not doing it. You're not focusing on it. You cannot be world-class in quality and be injuring all of your workers. Think about it. You're going to have all kinds of turnover. You're going to have folks going out, and you're going to have temporary workers come in, or people moving cross-trained to fill in gaps because people are on light duty. And what kind of quality do you think you're going to have when you have a high incident rate, injury illness rate, and you're constantly losing people, turning over, and you get this reputation in the industry? Good Lord, don't go there. You'll end up getting injured, and then when you do get injured, they won't put you back to work. They let you go. They put you on disability. You're better off just going somewhere else. How great at quality do you think you're going to be? How great at cost are you going to be? Think about it. We have got the best, most competitive price. Not if you're injuring everybody. You know what your comp rates are going to be, your experience modification rate. If you're in a state-run plan, you're going to be penalty rated. You can't get into a group discount. If you're self-insured, same thing. Your premiums are going to go up. That's the cost of doing business. That's how you set your price for your products. I mean, that's one driver, right? Your shop rate is directly impacted by how much it costs to underwrite your workers. You want to be world-class in cost. You want to be world-class in delivery and quality. You have to be world-class in safety as well. You have to be world-class at all of them. So the same, look to where you're successful in other areas of employee engagement and culture, and just layer safety onto that. What are our supervisors doing? What message are they sending that is ringing true with these workers that's helping to drive that aspect of our culture and engage them on the safety front as well? Having safety in meetings, encouraging workers to report hazards or equipment issues as soon as they see them, and demonstrate commitment by following up on those reports. That's key. Actions speak louder than words, right? Put your money where your mouth is. Get out there on the floor. If you do leader standard work, you need to add safety to this. If you do quality inspections, right, do a layered process audit, right? Do that whole holistic approach. When you ask, when you have a checklist of quality questions, what about machine guarding? You're standing there looking at a machine and you're asking all these questions about whether or not you got your red tags set up, whether or not you've got the proper forms at your workstation. If you have a quality alert that you need to raise, you could fill all that out. You're asking about, calibration, last calibration check. Can the operator identify the e-stops on the machine? Are all the guards present and in place on the machine? I mean, it's real easy to do. It's easy to do. You don't have to do it. Safety doesn't have to be a separate activity that you do. Safety is an integral part to the way we do our work. It is a natural fit for the way we do our work. When I walk up to the machine, I put my safety glasses on and I have my face shield on, or whatever is appropriate it's just natural. It should feel natural. It shouldn't be an additional thing we do that's weird. Management, especially frontline supervisors, can help drive that culture. They set that tone every day. You can tell the high-performing teams that have an engaged supervisor that won't tolerate this stuff, that says, no, I will not get one of you injured. We have the tools, we have the technology, we have the policies and procedures, we've done the work. You have everything you need. I expect you to do your part, and I will help you. I will help make sure you have everything you need. And you can tell those teams that are high-performing teams, they get this right. So you can also compare teams with each other. Which teams have a higher incident rate? Which teams have more first aids? Which teams don't do the weekly audits or walks? Which supervisors don't do their Gemba walk or whatever it is you're doing, or layered process audits, right? You can compare teams to teams. You want to compare everybody to the highest performing team, not an average. You don't want average teams. I want the highest performing team, and I want to have everybody else try to chase that standard. Leadership has to start this process. Employers all probably have the right policies and procedures. That's not the issue. You can download all this stuff off the internet. I need a written confined space program. Good Lord, they're falling off trucks. You can get those for free. You're going to have to customize it to your site. Yeah, you're going to have to identify the spaces you have. Okay, so we don't have catch basins and we don't have boilers, but we have an autoclave that's large enough to get in, and we have an overflow tank that we have to clean every once in a while. So there's that. You can get started. That's not the problem. The problem is, are your workers filling out the confined space permit religiously? Are they testing the air? Do you have the equipment available? Is it calibrated at a regular schedule? Who's making sure that's getting done? Management does. So start with leadership. Make sure that we're sending the right message. Make sure we follow up with that paper program and we actually are communicating it effectively, sending the right message, and then we follow up out in the workplace. So 3 Ps: paper, people, places. That's where you start. I know people are shaking their heads and going, you say it and you make it sound easy. It's actually that easy. And if you don't have people that are willing to do this, you don't have the right people. Bottom line, you have to have the right people. But culture is nothing more than the expectation of a certain behavior or the tolerance or acceptance of a certain behavior in the workplace. When you've got workers not wearing PPE, I can walk through. I'll give you some inside baseball here. I would go to a facility or to project sites without even meeting middle management or even the majority of upper management. I could walk through the facility or walk through the project site, and I could tell what kind of management I'm dealing with, how engaged they are, what they're driving most, what's most important to these supervisors, because you can tell by the condition of the workplace, the condition of their tools and equipment, the presence or lack thereof of certain PPE, or the inconsistent use of personal protective equipment. You can tell what kind of management or leadership you're dealing with, because that is culture. All those things I described are signs of a workplace culture, a very specific workplace culture. If you're a safety manager and you're struggling with how to improve workplace culture, safety culture specifically, do those things. Look for where you have a strong culture already, in what areas of the business or the work. Start going to those leaders and say, how did you do that? And can we add or layer on safety? And also look at leadership. What kind of leadership do you have? And are we investing enough in frontline leaders, middle management, if you will? Are we investing enough training? And it's because, a lot of skilled trades, this is a big deal in skilled trades. We don't hire and promote based on their ability to interact and manage with, people. They're really good at their trade, and we think they can manage or oversee a bunch of other people doing that, right? And so are we investing the right time and energy and resources and training and education with, those that we bring into middle management? That's where you can start. If you're looking to address safety culture, start there. Where do we already have successful or strong culture in other areas of the business? Go and talk to those people that are driving it and look at your frontline supervisors and ask, do we have the right people, and are they equipped? Do they have the right tools, the knowledge, skills, and abilities? I mean, some of this is old school stuff. This is basic elementary stuff. You're going to go back to the basics on some of this, but that's where you have to start. You can start with the end in mind. We want an engaged workforce that is proactively identifying and addressing safety concerns on the shop floor, out at the project sites where the work happens. They're empowered. You can use all those buzzwords, but you're going to have to work your way back from there, and where you're going to end up is exactly those 2 areas. So I told you about the NIOSH tool. That will shed some light. The ANSI Z10 is another one that is a really, really good tool that will, and they all start with the same VPP, same great tool. You can look at the VPP and have no intention of partnering with OSHA, but I'm going to tell you right now, if you follow those 4 elements and you look at the sub elements and you say, we got to implement all these things, and we will implement all these things, you will see the same benefits. You don't need the flag flying out front per se to reap the benefits of those approaches. But any of these tools will work. Okay, go to the link in a show notes for all of these. The VPP Simplified Gap Tool, the NIOSH, those 5 elements to total worker health, the ANSI Z10 standard, ISO has a new safety health management system, standard coming out. These all have the same elements. I don't care what you pick. You just have to get started. Once you decide what areas you need to focus on, what you need to implement, it's tactical after that. You have to engage these things. You have to actually start the hard work of putting these things in place and then not letting your foot off the gas pedal. It never stops. It never ends. It never goes away. As a matter of fact, the VPP clients I work with, the ones that struggle the most, the ones that have been VPP Star certified for, 5-6 years. When their recert comes up, they're struggling. They're like, wow, how, we feel like we've been doing this for 5 years. How could we possibly improve on that? That's the hard part. They've had a certain amount of turnover, and they're like, wow, we've got certain workers out here who have never heard of VPP, and OSHA's coming back in next year to recertify us. Well, we're freaking out. Getting the flag is actually easier than sustaining and maintaining and improving it going forward. That's the challenge. But that's what I'm talking about. Pick that starting point and then build from there. Ask yourself where we have successful engaged cultures, where else in the business we have that, and do we have the right frontline supervisors? Start with those 2 things. Check out these tools. I have links in the show notes. They will help you to get started, but it doesn't matter what else you do with your written programs and your policies, procedures, and your fancy signs and labels, and you got the right rugs, in the shop with all the safety messages on it. Doesn't matter. If you don't have leadership commitment, engaging workers, doesn't matter. Culture eats process for lunch. Culture is where you need to start. Something else I want to leave you with. It doesn't matter any of these programs. It's not going to matter what you do. If you're going to partner with OSHA and VPP, the biggest mistake I've seen clients make in the past is that I ask why. Why are you going to partner with OSHA? Well, we want to improve our safety program. Getting the VPP Star flag is not going to improve your safety program. And they just kind of look at me. You don't apply to OSHA to get the VPP Star flag, and then they give you this manual and give you all this free advice on how to improve your safety program. No, it's a recognition program, and that is it. That's all the VPP is. So you start with your safety programs. You don't get a world-class safety and health management system by applying to the OSHA VPP. You get the VPP Star flag by having a world-class safety and health management system. So it starts there. That's your focus. Don't even mention VPP. Don't even mention it. Yeah, at a certain level, the OSHA expects you to have talked about VPP and that it's still, it doesn't remove or take away any of the employees' rights under the OSHA Act, and that it is just a partnership with OSHA, recognizing the workplace's efforts towards safety and health. Other than that, it's all about your safety and health management system, and they're going to start with that first thing. They're going to start with leadership commitment and employee engagement. All of these programs. Doesn't matter which one you pick, start with leadership. You've got to take a long, hard, honest look at what kind of leadership you have, because, what leadership permits, leadership condones. So if you're looking at how can we get people to start wearing safety glasses? How can we get people to stop doing this? You just need to go the next layer up. You're probably going to find the source of your problem. And if you say we've got middle managers, frontline managers, and supervisors that are not engaged, they're not setting the expectation for worker safety and health, go to the next level up. Well, what is their supervisor driving them to do and leaning on them to do? They're probably responding and reacting to an environment as well, just like your workers are. Keep going up. And you have to address every layer of that management system. So start there. I got a soapbox out on this one. I hope you don't mind. It's been a while coming. I've been thinking about this one. I get a lot of emails about workplace culture. Tackle workplace culture. Show it. Explain how we can improve workplace safety culture. And it's not a real. There's no silver bullet, but it's actually easier than you would think. You just have to be honest and have to be willing to have that very uncomfortable conversation. And if you have management and leadership that is willing and they're open to this, then that's the first critical step in the right direction. Check out the tools in the show notes. Read them, open them up, and read them. ANSI, you're going to have to buy that one. Sorry, it's ANSI. They need money. You're going to have to buy the Z10 standard. The NIOSH Workbook is free. I have the link for that one. Go back and listen to, if you don't want to, purchase the VPP Simplified Gap tool, fine, don't. It doesn't bother me one bit. Again, I've used it for years. It is a handy tool. I still use it. Go back and listen to the 4 episodes on the 4 elements of VPP. The 4 elements, I go line by line through the gap tool in those podcasts. So I essentially read it to you, explain what OSHA means by having that, what you can do, and give you examples of how you can implement that. I go line by line through the entire tool. So go back and listen to those episodes. Take good notes. Shoot me an email if you have any questions. I'm always willing to help. I probably shouldn't say this, but I've gotten on the phone with some of the podcast listeners who have reached out and said, hey, I wanted to purchase the tool and wanted some help getting it off the ground. Did a quick call with that individual. Texas, they were in Texas, and went over the gap tool. Everything went fine. I've gotten some emails since from that individual, and their company is well on their way to addressing some of the issues that they knew they needed to address. But look, just get started. Be honest with yourself. You probably know where the issues lie. You probably know what the problems are. Don't avoid having that conflict, okay? Meaningful conflict is okay if you have the right culture, if you have the right management culture, if they're willing and open to be honest with themselves, have that conversation. Get started. Let me know how it goes for you. I wanted to talk about culture. I'm going to do some more episodes on culture. There are other little there are cogs and wheels within this topic that are important that I will be talking about. Some tools that you can also use, like cultural survey tools, things like that. Gallup has a really good 12 core questions type of thing. Gallup does a lot of work with surveys in the workplace. That's another resource. I'll talk more about that in future episodes. But keep listening. Hit that subscribe button. If this is the first time you're listening to the Safety Pro podcast, one, thanks. Let me know how you found it. Shoot me an email. But hit the subscribe button, okay? It's free. Hit that subscribe button, and you won't miss another episode. You'll get up if you're on Apple Podcasts. Of course, it'll update automatically when a new episode hits. But hit the subscribe button. It helps us rank on Apple Podcasts as well. Leave a rank and review. If you don't like it, let me know. I need to hear it. If you think I should improve something, let me hear it. Let me know, okay? I'm an open book. Also, if you have a topic request, shoot me an email. I've done many of these. This one is a topic request. I get more questions about, I get more questions about culture. I get questions about just how to manage my time. That was the last episode. So go back, if you're a first-time listener, go back, try to play catch-up on some other past episodes. Something else, if you're a regular listener, that you'll probably notice, I have managed to fix the audio problem I had. Oh, my goodness. I don't know what was going on. I got some new hardware is what it was, and just replaced some equipment. And I did get some feedback on like, hey, what's up with the sound? It's awful. I know it was bad, but I didn't want to miss putting out episodes. So I kind of just suffered through it. But I've seemed to have fixed that problem, thank goodness. So I hope the quality of the podcast is improving going forward, and I want the quality of the topics to improve as well. Keep the emails coming. Hit subscribe. Let me know what you think of the podcast. And until the next episode, as always, be safe.